Welcome, everyone. Welcome to TAKESTOCK Live, our weekly investor webinar series, live every Wednesday, 15 minutes after market close. Next week, the next slide here. Oh, sorry, before then. We would like to introduce our new feature in Mining Month. The whole month will be featuring interesting range of mining companies every Wednesday. And this is being done in association with, and thank you very much to the Mineral Exploration Group, Calgary Meg. Next week, we have API, KDK, and TOC. That's API Energy, Kodiak Copper, and Sokoman Ventures. We would like to thank the TMX Group and TSX Venture Exchange, our event partner, for helping keep the conversation between companies and investors going in these very unusual times. We'd also like to recognize the vital support provided by our core sponsors, Fasken, MNP, D. Jones Cable, Olympia Trust, and the CSE, who helped launch the forum back in 2014. Thank you also to our extended network for their support in launching this new initiative. Thank you again to Calgary Meg, to CIM, Sterling Merchant Capital, Conduit IR, the Newswire, Investmentpitch Media, Kitco, and many others. Also, bringing companies that we're going to see this week to us, thank you goes out to Kathy Hume and her team at CHF Capital Markets. CHF Capital is a Toronto-based investor relations firm which has been a trusted partner for many public companies operating in mining, technology, healthcare, oil and gas, and special situations of Canada and worldwide. I will now shortly turn the mic over to my colleague, Mark Francis. Take it away, Mark.
Thank you, Raj. Welcome all of you, our attendees and guest presenters. Note our disclaimer. This presentation is for information only and is not a solicitation to buy or sell stock. Companies pay fees to present at TAKESTOCK, and TAKESTOCK and its principals, Raj Joshi and Mark Francis, may have equity investments in companies we invite to present, may consult to the companies, and make no representation or investment or other recommendation in regards to these presenting or any other companies. You should do due diligence and seek professional investment advice. Some housekeeping matters for attendees. You will note a red button on your screen. If you lose audio, just click it and you will be reconnected. Today, after the Q&A panel, we will allow extra question time at the very end for the geologically or technically minded. The chat board will be utilized in this session in particular for this. Please be clear about to whom your question is addressed. Today, we have guests from 3 companies active in advancing mineral projects. Each company will have a presentation with their PowerPoint, followed by a panel discussion with Q&A moderated by Al Turner, PGO of Stantec and Calgary Meg. We encourage you to connect with the companies directly in order to get detailed information. Contact details for the presenters can be found on our website, takestocklive.com. Stephen Stairs of Benton Resources, symbol BEX. Stephen has been directly involved in the startup of 10 publicly traded companies on the TSX Venture Exchange. Alexander Sandy Stairs, CEO of Metals Creek, MEK. Mr. Stairs served in the Canadian Air Force for 15 years, a point that Raj and I particularly like to note, and has since had over 18 years experience in mineral exploration. It should be pointed out, in March of 2007, the Stairs-Keats family were the proud recipients of Prospectors and Developers Association Bill Dennis Prospector of the Year Award. We also have Timothy Frood, CEO of Sokoman Minerals, symbol SIC. Tim is a graduate of Memorial University of Newfoundland, has been active in the mineral exploration sector for over 30 years, having worked for, among others, Inco Limited, Altius Resources Corp, and Cornerstone Resources. He was also directly responsible for the discovery of the Valentine gold deposit in central Newfoundland. So let's start with you, Stephen Stairs. Stephen?
Yes, thanks very much for the introduction. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'll start with Benton was formed in 2005 and IPO'd shortly thereafter. We are a project generator. We've generated dozens and dozens of high quality projects. One of our big successes was the Bermuda project, which was an extension of the Marathon Platinum deposit, which was purchased by Stillwater Sabine. Subsequently, after they purchased Marathon PGM, they purchased Benton's project for $15 million. We reinvested most of that money back into a company called Coral Mining, which we ended up having 57 million shares of Coral, which we dividend to our shareholders back in 2011, I think it was, or 2012. So we take pride in paying our shareholders when we can. I'll move on to the share structure of the company. We have 87 million shares out. We've just completed or in the process of completing a $1.2 million equity financing. We have about $11 million in equity holdings in the company through our prospect generation model. Last of that was a company called Clean Air Metals, which I'll talk about a little bit in the coming slides. We currently got a cash position of 1.45 that don't include the current financing that we're closing. And we got a market cap of just 12 million or 12.9 million, which, as you can see, is tremendously undervalued for the assets that Benton hold. We have a good board on Benton. Myself, Evan Hasselstein's our CFO. He's been with us more or less since the beginning. My brother Mike Steris, who is also the CEO of White Metal Resources. John Sullivan is one of our directors. He's a PGO. He was one of the head guys at Miranda Mining at one point, and he's now semi-retired. Gord Fretwell is a corporate secretary and also a legal counsel out of Vancouver. And Nathan Sims is our VP of Exploration or Senior Exploration Manager. So being a project generator, we have in our portfolio a variety of really high quality projects that are being advanced by other people. This includes the high grade Thunder Bay North and Escape Lake PGM. Benton currently holds 24.6 million shares of this company. The Panama Gold Project, and I should point out that we all hold a 0.5% royalty on the deposit as well. Panama Gold Project, located in the Red Lake District, on the same structure as Great Bear Resources, and they've are outlining significant results in the last couple of years. Their stock is now trading, around $11 from 40 or 50 cents. Staghorn Gold Project being advanced by Quadro Resources. We own 4.2 million shares of that company. Bark and Barrel Lake, both under option to Rio Tinto Canada, being advanced by Rio Tinto. And the latest that we've picked up is called Far Lake Copper. It's a new high-grade copper with significant silver and gold. And it's under option from White Metal Resources, where Benton can earn 70% interest. This is just a property map located looking from Thunder Bay. So you can see the city of Thunder Bay just right here. To the north of Thunder Bay, only 40 kilometers, is the Escape Lake and Thunder Bay North deposits. This is located only 60 kilometers south of the Lac des Îles mine, which was just purchased by Impala for $1 billion. The CEO of Lac des Îles mine, or North American Palladium was the name of the company, was Jim Gallagher. He is now executive chairman of Clean Air Metals after he sold the mine to Impala. So it just gives an endorsement of how good this project is, that he left this $1 billion operation and now is the executive chairman. And they just closed on $15 million raise, and they're currently closing another $6.7 million. And they have a drill turning on the project as we speak. And Abraham Dross, who is no stranger to M&A takeovers, is the CEO of the company. So great management team. Benton owns a large share position and a royalty on this project. You will see in the middle there's a black squiggly line called the critical fault. There is multiple new discoveries along that structure and band of rocks, which includes also the Far Lake copper discovery, and also the Bark and Barrel Lake PGE project that we've optioned to Rio Tinto. So we believe this area of about 200 kilometers of a favorable stratigraphy is going to be subject to extensive exploration over the coming years. Just want to talk a little bit about Escape Lake and Thunder Bay North. Benton paid Rio Tinto $3 million for the option back about 8 months ago. We subsequently rolled into a company called Regency Metals, which changed its name to Clean Air Metals on a RTO. Benton retained a 0.5% royalty on Escape Lake and a 0.5% royalty on the Thunder Bay North deposit. We completed a $15 million financing at 20 cents a share. Currently, Clean Air is trading around 33, 34 cents. It says 40 there, but that was yesterday. It's only 65 kilometers south of the Lactazil palladium mine, which is now owned by Impala. There's been a historical resource estimate put on the Thunder Bay North deposit, which equates to about 741,000 ounces of platinum equivalent. And new discovery by Rio Tinto, only a kilometer or two to the west of that, was the Escape Lake discovery, which included drill holes, which is 121 meters of 2.49 grams platinum plus palladium plus gold, and 33 meters of 7 grams, so with 2.26 copper plus nickel. So these are some of the highest grade platinum palladium results that I've probably seen in my career. Far Lake project, this is the project that we recently acquired. It's going to be our flagship property. We're earning up to 70% by spending $2 million over, I think it's 5 years. It's got excellent access just off the Trans-Canada Highway. It's close to the sea and rail. Property got excellent blue sky potential. There's never been any historical work other than what White Metals has done since 2017 discovery, and they continue to discover new stuff right up until Benton optioned the ground a few weeks ago. Benton has already started a soil geochem sampling program with a crew of guys. We started mapping and also starting an airborne survey next week. So this will all come together and make us drill priority targets moving forward. This is just a map showing.
Stephen, we're going to have to wrap up here.
Okay, so this is just a map showing the area, large project, big structures. The structures are over 11 kilometers long. Just some pictures of the mineralization, massive chalcopyrite and breccias within these large structures that's been undiscovered in the past. Epithermal vein systems that you'd see in large porphyry systems. Just some pictures of those. And that's it for Benton.
Thank you, Stephen. Now we will have Sandy Stairs, Metals Creek.
Thank you, Mark. Metals Creek is a junior exploration company. We're listed on the TSX Venture. We like to think of ourselves sort of as a project generator. However, we have 2 projects that we focus on. We have a number of projects optioned out to other companies, and we hold a significant portfolio of stock in other companies such as Quadro Resources, Sokoman Minerals, O3 Mining, Trifecta Gold, Manning Ventures, Anaconda Mining, to name a few, and this is all through property deals that we've done. However, one of our main projects is the Donner Lake project in the Pickle Lake area of northwestern Ontario. Pickle Lake camp is really heating up. Otico Minerals from Australia on the ASX entered into an agreement with First Mining where they can acquire an 80% interest in the Pickle Crow. They have to spend $10 million over 5 years, make cash payments of $4 million, and issue 125 million shares. So we're located 12 kilometers to the south of that. We can earn a 100% interest by issuing 7 million shares and to Newmont and expending $4 million worth of expenditures over 3 years. So it's Meadows Creek's second option agreement with Newmont. It's similar geology, banded iron formation to Musselwhite, which has produced greater than 4 million ounces. In addition, the Homestake mine is also in a banded iron formation, and that mine produced greater than 40 million ounces of gold. There's two subparallel zones, approximately 25 meters apart, B zone and the main zone. The main zone was mined down to the 455 level, which is 455 meters vertical from the surface. B zone wasn't mined at all. They drifted over to it and they didn't mine it. It was mined along strike for 125 meters. So it's open along strike and at depth. And there's no modern exploration techniques utilized on the property over the last 25 years. The mine shut down in 1995. The price of gold was approximately $350 an ounce. Clearly, there are multiple iron formations which host gold mineralization outside of the host iron formation to the B zone and the main zone. The mag on the east side of the property illustrates a new mag signature, which is highly indicative of additional iron formations with significant folding present as well. And that's a key indicator for a conducive environment for the gold mineralization. The peripheral iron formations are barely touched with recent exploration techniques. And there's two eastern mag signatures you can see here that are potentially new discoveries for gold mineralization. This is a 3D image. You see the main zone in red and the B zone in blue. The main zone, as I said, was mined down to the 455 level. The deepest hole we found during our compilation was 100 meters below that, where they stopped mining. And that hole ran 4.3 grams over 21 meters. And as I said, they drifted over to the B zone, but didn't do any mining. In the B zone, there's also hits of 26 grams over 5 meters and 9.9 over 10. So there's multiple drill hits over there as well. Here you see the potential for the continuation of mineralization at depth on the main zone. You see 9.8 grams over 14 meters, 9.2 grams over 10 meters. So this is all still sitting there. And 100 meters below where they stopped mining, you see the 4.3 grams over 21 meters. There's also mineralization outside. It seems they took the high-grade core, so there's still some mineralization left to the outside of where they mine. Just quickly, another project we have is another joint venture with Newmont. It's in the heart of the Timmins Gold Camp. It's a 50-50 joint venture. We're the operator and we set the budget. We have over 8 kilometers strike length of the Porcupine District break, which is the key conduit for gold mineralization in Timmins Camp. There's 6 mineralized gold zones on the property. There's also a past producer on this project on the eastern side of the project called the Nabob Mine. It produced about 50,000 ounces of gold in the 1950s. There is a historic non-43-101 compliant resource on this project as well, 1 million tons at 4 grams. Our drilling results include 210 grams over 12.5 meters. In that was 2,732 grams over 0.93 meters, so almost a meter of 2.73 kilograms of gold. Other drilling, 2.2 grams over 75 meters, and that's 5 grams over 23 meters. We stepped out 1 kilometer to the west of the Thomas Ogden zone, which is completely overburden covered. We hit 3 grams over 8.2 meters, so it shows the stratigraphy is still going, and the western 4 kilometers is vastly underexplored due to the lack of outcrop. So Meadows Creek's ground is there in the red. The Porcupine Dester break passes right through the property. You see the red hatch area. That's the Porcupine Dester break. So we have 8-kilometer strike length of the Porcupine Dester. This is a blow up of the property, the 6 gold zones. Nabob is to the east. That's the past producer. Thomas Ogden zone sits pretty much right in the middle of the property. And to the that's where we drilled the 210 grams over 12.5 meters. And of course, the western 4 kilometers is vastly underexplored.
Okay, Sandy, we have to wrap.
Okay.
Your time.
And this is just our near-term plans on the projects.
Very good. Thank you very much, Sandy. We'll now have Tim Frood, Sokoman Minerals. Tim.
Thank you, Mark, and the opportunity to give this overview of the Moosehead Gold Project located in north central Newfoundland. It's a project we acquired from Altius Minerals in late 2017, early 2018, and we basically drilled the first hole this late summer of 2018, and yeah, that was a good hole. It was basically a discovery of a new zone on the property, and I'll get into that in due course. Shares issued and outstanding, just over 109 million right now, and a current share price floating between 10 and 11 gives us a market cap of about $11 million. We currently have 1.6 million in cash, all hard dollars. And our largest shareholder, a fellow you might be familiar with, Mr. Eric Sprott, at about 15%. We have a very strong board. Being a discovery-focused company, our board is heavily weighted towards science. So most of the majority of the directors are geologists, and with very strong support from our technical guys in the financial and corporate and marketing areas as well. Central Newfoundland is what I would consider one of Canada's best kept secrets, although no one wants to keep a secret, especially in this business. Sokoman has 3 projects in what is being, I guess, nicknamed or dubbed the Central Newfoundland Gold Trend, which is host to numerous gold showings and prospects, including the 4.2 million ounce Valentine Lake project, which you see the red star down in the bottom corner of the map, bottom left corner of the map, which is under ownership by Marathon Gold, MOZ. As I mentioned, 4.2 million ounces and growing. The geology of central Newfoundland is underlain mainly by Paleozoic or fairly young rocks compared to the Archean in Ontario and other parts of the world, similar to gold-rich areas of Victoria, Australia. And that's important because the model that we're using for the Moosehead property is very similar in many aspects to the Fosterville gold mine, currently under ownership by Kirkland Lake Gold. And of course, Eric Sprott was the past chairman of that company. So a lot of connections here. The dominant geological feature in this image is the highlighted heavy black line, which is a major crustal scale structure that extends from Northern Ireland through to the Carolinas in the US. Large crustal scale breaks such as this are important for focusing gold. Large and multiple gold deposits and Sokoman properties all straddle this key feature. I also want to point out a private company called Newfound Gold announced in late 2019 very significant intersection in rocks similar to ours on a parallel structure, and only a half-an-hour drive along the Trans-Canada Highway of 19 meters of about 3 ounces or 93 grams. And they're currently raising money largely through folks like Eric Sprott and Rob McEwen. Infrastructure is critical to the ultimate success of any property, and Moosehead has tremendous infrastructure attributes, including cross-cut by 2 major highways, including the Trans-Canada Highway. It lies 18 kilometers south of a deep water port at Botwood, lies less than 2 hours drive east of the main base for the diamond drilling companies in Newfoundland, as well as the main assay lab. Hydropower link up 4 kilometers west of the property, and a skilled workforce in the nearby communities. We're going to focus now on that high-grade area you see outlined with the yellow ellipse. This is a drone image. Gives a great overview of the area where we have focused our work to date. And as you can see, logging roads and cutovers and other infrastructure are visible. Historical drilling trails provide direct access to pretty well the entire property. And the location of the 2 known zones or trends are shown and are only 200 to 300 meters apart. And those would be the western trend and the eastern trend. The eastern trend is our 2018 discovery, whereas the western trend is where most of the work was focused by previous operators. Originally discovered by Noranda prospectors in the late 1980s, boulders such as the one shown assayed over 400 grams per ton. Noranda only drilled 3 reconnaissance holes and subsequently dropped the ground, which was then staked by Altius, and over a 10-year period from 95 to 2004, explored the ground with various partners, including Teck, Royal Oak Mines, and the later company was Agnico Eagle, who drilled most of the historical holes that were put on this property, about 100 holes. And the property lay dormant, basically, from 2004 to 2016, and it was shortly after that we acquired the project. We have basically drilled 4 phases of drilling that we've reported. We just finished phase 5 in current May, and drilled just under 4,700 meters and 17 holes, and assays are pending. But you can see basically highlight holes from every phase we've drilled, and grade is certainly very evident on this property. Comparing to Fosterville, which I mentioned earlier, the mineralization, the age of the rocks, the structural history, the deformation, the type of veining, the style of veining, the mineralization in the veining is very similar. And here's an example of high grade from the Swan Zone at Fosterville and in our eastern trend. This intercept was 5 meters of 124 grams. I visited the mine. I was very fortunate in 2007 to be in Australia on other business, and happened to make a side trip to the goldfields, and happened to pick up a few rocks in an open pit at Fosterville. And inside the white highlight box, you see there is a piece of rock actually from the open pit, which I just have placed on top of core at Moosehead. And as you can see, the style, type of veining, the alteration style is very similar, and very comforting when you can actually lay rocks side by side and they look this similar. Our 3D leapfrog model shows basically the deposit as of, or deposits, I should say, as of phase 4 drilling. What you see here basically in red is a series of shear zones that seem to be linked at depth and along strike that are open to depth. We know these structures are quite extensive. As I mentioned before, they go the entire length of the property and full 8 kilometers. And basically what you're seeing here is just a 2 kilometer slice of where most of the work has been done. And we feel that there's plenty of evidence to suggest these zones do coalesce at depth, and that will be a important task for us with phase 6 coming up later this summer, is to attack this at much greater depths. Near-term plans, analyzing results of a recently received MAG survey, as well as till horizons for other targets, updating the model, and planning additional drilling, including a minimum 10,000 meter program. And highlights of the property, basically road accessible. We own 100% of it, subject to a 2% NSR. Sprott is the largest shareholder. We've drilled just under 24,000 meters. 90% of the holes have intercepted the gold-bearing shear zone, and it's a very comparable model to Fosterville in Australia.
Thank you very much, Jim. Excellent. Thank you, Tim. As of tomorrow on the Take Stock Live website, you can pick up all of the PowerPoint presentations. They will be posted by tomorrow, takestocklive.com. Now we will bring on Al Turner, professional geologist and current chair/president of the Calgary Mineral Exploration Group. I point out that this very fine vest that I wear every Take Stock is actually a Calgary Meg vest, thanks to Daniel Beauchamp. Meg has been a long-standing supporter of Take Stock. Al will be our moderator for the Q&A portion. So thank you for joining us today, Al. Over to you. And if all of our presenters could now come back live on video. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Before we get into the technical questions, I guess we'll start off with kind of an easy general question, and this is one for everybody to take a turn on feeding in on. I guess the question is, how has this the current state of the coronavirus affected your exploration plans, and what sort of adjustments have you had to make to your programs?
Well, if I can start, Al, it has affected. There are impacts. In fact, it affected our Phase 5 program, which we just completed. We had to cut it short when in March and April things were, so up in the air, as everybody knows. I mean, there was just fear, and so basically we decided in agreement with the drilling contractor to shut down, and so that cut it short. But we were able to work out a program that involved measures to avoid as much direct or even indirect contact with each other's employees, and we were able to continue and drill 4 extra holes. But it has slowed down the results from the labs, both labs, in fact, the assay lab for our rocks and core, as well as our till samples. And so it's putting us a little bit behind. We're probably a month or more behind in terms of putting out final results, and but we're getting through it.
Okay. Has it had an impact on cash requirements then as well, or?
Well, it has in some senses, yes. That new gear, extra personnel, it has had a cost effect for sure. I would say 10% in terms of what it would add to the budget.
Okay. Stephen, have you had impact with Benton Resources as well, or? Oh, I think your mic's turned off.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we have the same sort of thing as Tim. You need extra trucks. We only travel one man per truck when we're in the field. Still got a social distance. We shut our office down, so we're all working from home. For a while, like Tim said, when everything was up in the air, we were basically just paying geologists. Most of our guys, we only have a couple guys working with us. They were still, doing lots of map and stuff, but it's hard when you don't have access to your plotter and stuff like that. But we're getting through it now. It is adding a little bit to the cost with the extra trucks and extra equipment that you'd need to stay social distance. But all in all, it's been pretty good. And the market actually, strangely enough, it's almost like the investors have time now to start looking at companies again. And it seems to me that a lot of companies are actually starting to see some life.
That's a good point.
Which is a good thing, I guess.
That's true. Sandy, how about on Metals Creek?
Yeah, so I guess it's the same for everybody. As Stephen said, if you got 2 guys, of course, you don't want anybody in the field by themselves. So they have to take 2 vehicles out there. On the other end, it gives where everybody's working from home. It gives them a chance to do a little bit of research and come up with new properties. Stuff you can stake and look for partners on stuff like that. But of course, it is a very challenging situation. And especially when, like Tim said, when you want to be drilling, you want to be in the field doing your field work, and you have to think of the local communities and whatnot as well, and especially the First Nation communities. And yeah, so it certainly does have an impact.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thank you. I guess moving on, we've got about 10 minutes before we start the open forum of questions. And I've got a few questions that I can fire off on. And some of them are kind of technical, but we'll hopefully save the really technical questions to after 3 o'clock. But starting off, Stephen, with on the Far Lake project, unfortunately you had to kind of go through the slides a little quicker at the end, but one of the slides I was interested in was the 2 swamp zone mentioned that you've got quartz veining exhibiting epithermal textures, and you alluded to that as well when you were talking. Just wondering, can you describe a little bit about the textures you're observing and the potential for precious metal concentration at depth?
Yeah, so it's really, really early stage. We're just starting to do a massive amount of geochemistry on the rocks. Right now we've only probably got a half dozen samples. We see stuff that resembles chalcedony. We see stuff that we can see growth rings within the quartz themselves, secondary and third phase stockwork, which is really rare and I've never seen before up in the Quetico sediments. These are some of the oldest rocks in the world. So it's an odd place for it to be, but there has been strange deposits found like this in the past, such as like Gas Bay and areas like that. And strangely enough, to the south is the Shabandowan nickel mine that was in production for about 40 years with Inco. And once the geologists hit the greenstone, the boundary of the greenstone belt, they stopped exploring. So there's never been one assessment file ever done north of that up in the Quetico sediments. And since the discovery of the Proterozoic rift style nickel deposits now, such as Eagle and Thunder Bay North and Escape Lake and Sunday Lake, and Rio Tinto obviously got Bark and Barrow from Benton, there's a lot more activity starting to happen within that band of sediments. So it's a really highly favorable place to be, and these structures are huge. So that quartz stockwork is 200 meters wide, at least. We haven't seen the edges of it. So it's pretty impressive to see that much fluid pumped through the system. So we're pretty excited that we're going to find something here.
Oh, that's excellent. Sandy, I'll move on to a question then for Metals Creek. You kind of mentioned the open end potential is quite high at the Donna Lake mine at the main zone. Is it possible to gain access to that 455 level to advance drilling, or is the mine inaccessible at this time, or has it been flooded?
Yeah, the mine is flooded. The head frame has been removed. So yeah, all of our drilling will be from the surface. In fact, our first drill program that we have planned that we're hoping to get going really soon, there will be one deep hole. It'll be about 750 meters deep. And that'll target the 4.3 grams over 21 meters.
Nice.
Confirmation drilling and see what else we can hit there. But in answer to your question, yes, the mine is flooded and the head frame is removed there.
Sure, but lots of open end potential there, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, we're really excited about it.
Oh, that's excellent. Tim, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to point out that one thing that that's interesting about this is the same era that Hard Rock was shut down, up in Geraldton, which Premier and Centerra own now. And only due to, exploration in the last 4 or 5 years, they've outlined 10 million ounces under the exact same geology as the Donna Lake mine. So, these things are wide open. They were just shut down for the price of gold, for nothing less.
Yeah. Okay. Now, Tim, just wanted to ask you a question about Sokoman Minerals. I guess one of the things that got my interest was the 3D model that you showed us, the Leapfrog model, screenshot of the western and eastern trends. And off the eastern trend, it showed a northeast structure that seemed to kind of be a cusp off of it. Is the current interpretation of this structure that it's also acting as a fluid conduit to bring precious metals into the system? Just thinking back to the picture you showed, I did see some grade, like on strike with that structure. There seemed to be some grade kicks, but maybe you can speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. What we're finding is that this is a very robust. We're calling it a shear zone for now, simply because of the textures we're seeing it. It's probably part of a thrust fault sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Thrust faulting is very common in this part of Newfoundland, and as I mentioned as well in my presentation, the structure that we're sitting on, crosses the Atlantic over to Northern Ireland, where Galradian was taken out, I think a year or two ago, for about 700 million, about a 6 million ounce gold deposit, and of course extends down into the Carolinas. But clearly, what we're seeing in our drilling is the structures all do appear to be linked, and what's probably going on is that you're getting feathering, near the culmination of the leading edge of a thrust, and that at some point, all these structures are linked at depth. And there just hasn't been enough drilling, and I want to point out that the deepest hole drilled on this project, successful hole drilled on this, and there was only one drill below 200 meters, was in 2003 by Altius, and they cut 9 ounces over half a meter, and that was never followed up. So that was where we directed our first hole, 1801, in 2018. And we had a little different interpretation on the structure. We're learning a little bit more about it by now, but we cut 11.9 meters of 45 grams at a depth of 70 meters. So that told us either there's 180 meters minimum height in this high grade system, or we're in a different one. Subsequent work has shown that it is the same. It is the same shear zone. It's actually dipping, contrary to what the west trend is, and the two may in fact be linked at depth. So all these structures are carrying gold, and I think we just need to find, and what we're finding, Alan, is that where mafic dikes cross these structures,
right,
they act as either a chemical trap or a physical, a rheology, different, rocks behave differently. There's the host rocks or sediments, and easily sheared, whereas the dikes are a little more massive and they behave more brittlely, opening up these dilational zones, right? So it's all very exciting, and we have yet to go deep on this, but 2020 is the year we're going to go deep on this. When I say deep, Eric Sprott laughed when I said 400 meters because Fosterville is 1,200, 1,400 meters down and still going, and but we had plenty of targets above 200 meters. I mean, our discovery hole was 70 meters vertically, right, below surface, and so we had a lot of gaps to fill in there. And that's what we've been busy at, but I think people would welcome a few deeper holes in this project, and we're going to get there this summer.
That actually, Tim, brings up one of the other questions I was thinking about was, I guess, the focus of the 2018 and 2019 drill programs of them, from what I'm understanding, was really to further define and expand the shallow zones, mineralized zones in the western and eastern trends, and now the plan is to start really tagging in deeper. Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you. At this point, I think it's about 3 o'clock, and we're able now to open it up to more technical questions from the audience. And I think that's, Mark, if I understand it, this will be kind of a shift in our presentation style. Is that correct?
Indeed. So if everyone can just stay with us, for the purpose of the recording, which will be available for our 3 presenting companies, I'm going to do a close, and then everyone stay with us if you want to have the technical, be part of the technical questions. So thank you very much to Stephen Stairs, Benton Resources, Sandy Stairs, Metals Creek, and Tim Froud, Sokoman Minerals. To our attendees, thank you for your time today. Do go to the company websites and CDAR, learn more about these companies, and check in at TakeStockLive.com. Until next Wednesday, 15 minutes after market close, when we will have more mining companies for Mining Month, be determined in your due diligence and ask tough questions. Mark and Raj signing out from the formal part of TakeStockLive.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Good. So now we will carry on, and until we get technical questions from the audience, Al, I think you have more technical questions for our three presenters, so dig in.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. yes, I do. I think the
Actually,
oh, go ahead.
sorry about that. Why don't we just remind everybody that they can use the chat box, because they wouldn't be used to it from the last 5 sessions. So we've got about 27 people out there. Okay, Michael's just popped in a question. Yeah, everybody who's out there, please look at the right hand of your audience screen and feel free to type in questions till your heart's content. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Raj. Actually, this one's for Stephen on the back to Benton Resources. And it actually goes to a little bit of what we were just discussing with Tim. So I did a little digging into the property, the Far Lake project on the White Metals Resources website. And they presented a picture of the 2019 Airborne Total Field Magnetics map that showed a linear magnetic feature that appeared to be cut through, that cuts through the northeast-southwest oriented mafic intrusion. Then we have the copper-rich breccia zone appears to be located at the intersection of a linear magnetic feature with a fault zone. And I guess the question I have is, did field work completed on the breccia zone determine that the linear magnetic feature is a late-stage magnetic dike, or is it? I guess we'll start off with that. Or is it something else?
Yeah, it is a late-stage, basically a dye-based dike. One of the marathon dikes. These dikes actually are indicative and pretty much the same age as the Proterozoic ultramafic magma chambers that we're finding the platinum palladium deposits on.
Okay.
So so there is a north-south structure there. Obviously, these dikes come up these structures. That's why they're there. So there is a double or triple junction intersection there. There's actually the main stratigraphy. Northwest structure, which is a major breccia zone, and then there's a north-south dike that also all intersect in that general area. The mineralization for the copper, the heavier copper, is about 400 meters long now that we've chased it, and then it goes into a big swamp, and then across the swamp about 1 kilometer to the northwest, we've actually picked up the silica zone again. But the actual contact with the sediments, which seems to be the chemical reaction, there is the unaltered part of the silica system seems to be, a quartz feldspar porphyry, fairly fresh when you can get some pieces of it that's unaltered in the wall rock. So there is some sort of intrusive that's playing a part here. We're just unsure where it's coming from, because now we've identified a third structure that's off to the northeast, where there's a displacement in the mag by about 1 kilometer, and that we haven't done any sampling or anything on it yet. Just found it a couple of days ago. We got to go back in and do some stripping on it. But so these are big northwest structures that transcends between the Archean to the south. And then there's another Archean belt, lactomalac belt to the north. They're probably about 10 kilometers apart. And it seems to be, these structures are joining the two main fault zones, or two main greenstone belt.
Okay, excellent. Sandy, I've got another question for you. When we look at this property on the Dora Lake property again, how many regional drill holes have there been? I know that there's been a lot, obviously, on the Donna Lake mine area, but in one of the pictures that you showed in, I guess, the longer presentation that I had a chance to review, it looked like there could be potential for quite a few more holes that have been drilled through those areas. And also, if so, then do you have access to any core or RC chip samples that your crews could kind of go through a relog or a sampling program to maybe firm up more, I guess, further advance these targets without having to re-drill them? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, outside of the deposit, there's about 30 holes.
Okay.
Unfortunately, There's no core. Everything was bulldozed when they shut them on down there. So we only have select historical data. And that's, that's what we're putting on our slides there. All the data was in paper format. We had to convert everything digitally. And so we know there's about 30 holes out there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just select holes that we've actually found the data for.
Okay. Well, that's still something to work with. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. We have a question from the audience here. And what type of geology is on the real, sorry, I'll back up a little bit. What type of geology on the real options, the bark and, basically for the PGEs? Could you kind of discuss a little bit of what the option agreements are like?
Yeah, so the option agreements, it's Rio Tinto's actually has a small block of ground, as they did in the Thunder Bay North area, with Escape Lake in amongst the Thunder Bay North deposit. So Rio has been drilling in there as well, and they just followed an assessment that they have some high-grade nickel in some of those holes, up to 9% over a meter. So those drill holes are, about 600 or 700 meters from Benton's boundary. And then to the east is the Bark Lake project that's under option from Rio. And Benton and previous prospectors had discovered hundreds of boulders that grade up to about 4 to 5 grams per ton platinum palladium combined. But the source of those boulders have not been found. Now, Rio did drill a hole in a conduit just north of the boulders in the last drill program that they did, and they cut 19 meters of 0.75 grams PGEs, and that included, I think it was 0.4% copper, somewhere in that neighborhood. And that just shows you that the system is there, and that's, that gives a strike length of that conduit system of at least 5 to 6 kilometers long. And the geology is quetico sediments, much like Thunder Bay North and Escape Lake, and also the Far Lake project. So it's all the same geology, high-grade gneissic rocks, cut by these young intrusions along these major structures.
All right. So, Tim, I've got a question for you. It sounds like you've made some excellent headways on the defining the shallow potential, the mineralization at shallow depths. Are there thoughts about releasing any of that information once you've completed or obtained the May 2020 drill results into a resource estimation for a public disclosure, or are you planning on going down and completing more drilling campaigns before going that way? And I'm not sure if that's probing too hard, so you don't have to answer it if you don't want to. But either way, I'm curious about that.
Well, no, I mean, clearly, we're getting a better understanding of this system as we move forward. And, the drilling has been kind of spread around a little bit. In fact, the first phase, most of the first phase was actually drilled into the western trend, expanding and infilling holes that Altius had left there. Phase 2 focused, phase 2, 3, and 4. With some reconnaissance holes thrown in there, largely focused on the eastern trend. So, right now there's probably 60, 70 holes in each zone. And just thinking about that, most companies have resources. They have, 200, 300, 400 holes in their zones, right? But, clearly the limits that we've tested it to date, anyone can look at our drill plans and our longitudinals and see, it's a fairly tight area still. And that was for a reason. These high grade zones tend to be, kind of hard to trace sometimes,
Yes.
Continuity was an issue for earlier workers at Moosehead. We seem to be getting a little better at it. In fact, the last phase was, a very good phase. I can't really say much more than that, other than, we did put out a press release stating, the last 4 holes basically all hit, the zone, so we're learning a little bit more about it. So, And so before we do anything deeper on that, we wanted to figure out if there was any folding in there or if there was multiple chutes. And yes, there seems to be both. And but as far as a resource is concerned, we'd like to do a few step outs, to give the thing some legs before, even if it falls into the the inferred category, it'll still be a better number than what we know now would just be a limited resource, but still open in all directions.
Sure. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Sandy, I've got a few questions about the Ogden Gold project as well. You mentioned that there was a non-compliant historic 43-101 that was completed on the property. I'm assuming this was completed prior to Metal Creek's involvement in the project, but I should probably first of all just check that out with you. Is that the case?
Yes. That was before we optioned the project from Goldcorp at the time.
Okay, and in that case, there's obviously been a fair amount more drilling that's completed on the property since then. That, I guess, looking at that resource estimate, that's already a pretty strong resource estimate. Are you thinking of strengthening that with the current work you've been completing in the last while and building that into the geological model and developing a new resource estimate, or is that down the road somewhere?
Yeah, it'll be down the road a little bit. When you look at this, Newmont's Dome Mill is about 8 kilometers to the east of us.
Yes.
So should we build up a nice little resource here, it wouldn't be too hard to truck it to the mill. Mm-hmm. But we've been more focusing on the Thomas Ogden zone, which is where we've been getting our nice high grade. But we do go back and drill 3 or 4 holes into the Nabob North and the South. Okay. Every time we drill, yeah. But we've been more focused on the Thomas Ogden zone, which of course is where we get all our nice high grade there. Yeah. And now we've been starting to step out to the west, where there's very little work done, and we're hitting the stratigraphy, so we know it's continuing off to the west, and the whole area is really eating up as well with Melchior. They just put out some new drill holes off to the west there under Castilian, I think it is. Yeah, so.
Okay, excellent. Actually, can you just clarify with me then where the 2012-2013 drill results that were very high grade, which zone was that in?
That was in the Thomas Ogden zone.
That's what I thought then. And it showed depths down to 260 meters approximately. I guess, was that true depth, or is that hole depth?
No, that's a downhole intercept.
Yep.
The deepest that we've drilled vertically is 324 meters vertically.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and we've been following the plunge of the Thomas Ogden zone systematically, because there is some significant folding, and you can shoot yourself in the foot pretty fast by jumping down real deep early. We've done that, so we followed the plunge down. The deepest, as I said, is 324 vertically, and that hole ran, I think we had a meter of 34 grams within a broader, I can't remember offhand what it was. Yes. But but it shows, it is still continuing at depth.
Perfect. Okay, that actually was my lead-in question that I was going to be going down was had there been deeper drilling completed that could extend out the mineralization further than that depth. So that's great. Thanks, Sandy. Appreciate that. Yeah. I think at this point we could move it back to the viewers, the audience here, for any questions. Feel free to put one in the chat if you have them. If not, then I've asked most of the questions that I have, Mark. So maybe at this point I would, if we don't get more audience questions, I'd turn it back over to you. And I think you mentioned there might be a few words that each speaker could say as a wrap-up.
Certainly. We could give each speaker 15 seconds for a close if we don't get any questions. But I'd just like a recap, perhaps, from each of our speakers on their current capital position and when they think they'll have to go back to market for capital, those kinds of things. So throw it to you, out to the three of you.
Okay, I'll start, Tim, with Sokoman. We currently have about $1.5 million, 1.6 million in the treasury, all hard dollars. So, of course, those dollars are special to companies like ourselves. They give us more flexibility in terms of what we can do, in terms of acquisitions and just a lot. There's a lot of red tape associated with flow through. It's good to have. So, at some point in the very near future, yes, we will be looking at potentially raising some flow through to because we know we're going to be drilling. We have the targets. So I suspect in the very short term that we'll be looking to the market and looking to finance at least a 5,000 to 10,000 meter program moving forward.
Okay, I'll go next, I guess. Benton. So Benton is currently closing a $1.2 million financing. It's pretty much fully subscribed right now. We currently have about 1.4 in the bank. About 180 of that is flow through. So we've got a good hard position as well. Plus we have about $11 million in equities in the company. So our biggest equity position being 24 million shares of Clean Air, being led by Jim Gallagher and Abraham Dross. So we're in good shape. We got an airborne starting. It's going to be a fun summer of exploration. Again, early stage project, but we're seeing the error marks of something that's could be pretty special.
Good.
And Metals Creek, we have about $500,000 in the bank there. Plus, we have close to $1 million equity in stock in other companies. So we're fully funded for this upcoming drill program at Donald Lake. We will do a small raise just to cover if we want to keep drilling the Donald Lake while we're in there. And so yeah, that's about it.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Well, we'll give you each 15 seconds to have a final close, something in particular you'd like people to take back with them. Sandy, shall we start with you?
Sure. We're Metals Creek. As I said, we're looking forward to our upcoming drill program at Donald Lake. And that'll be starting here really soon. We got 3 holes planned. 1 deep one, at least 750 meters. 2 shallow ones. The shallow ones should pass through the main zone and the B zone. So theoretically, we should get 2 hits in both those holes. And so keep an eye out, and that's it.
Very good. Next, Tim.
Well, we intend to be a very active explorer this summer and fall, Mark. As I mentioned, we do have a treasury that can certainly guarantee us a good start on a 5 to minimum 5 up to 10 even more 1,000 meters of drilling. We're also expecting final results from a Sea Horizon till sampling program that's evaluating the 75% of the strike length of the structure that we haven't really looked at yet. Most of the work, historical and ours, is focused on a 2-kilometer stretch of an 8-kilometer long, mineralized shear zone, and preliminary results from till show, a couple of targets outside the area of work currently, and we should be a very active newsmaker, which shareholders like to see lots of news releases, especially with high grades, hopefully.
Thank you, Tim. And wrapping it up,
Benton Resources will be completing our airborne next week. Got crews on the ground right now. Rare to find a company with market cap that's equivalent to their cash equivalent size in the company, and we are active explorers in a great jurisdiction And I think there's going to be a lot of news flow coming from Benton when we start drilling in August, September as well. So please consider Benton as an investment.
Thank you, Stephen. Excellent. Thank you, Stephen, Sandy, and Tim. And again, to our attendees, thank you for your time today. Thank you for staying on to enjoy the additional technical time. Do go to the company websites and see and learn more about the companies. Check in at takestocklive.com, CEDAR. And until next Wednesday, 15 minutes after market close, when we will have more mining, be determined in your due diligence and ask tough questions. Mark and Raj signing out from Take Stock Live. Thank you.